They reached the White House, yet no politician in modern times engendered such extremes of devotion and distrust. It was in all probability because of an unusual set of factors, some peculiar to American life, some peculiar to Kennedy's life. They pulled against each other, working to his advantage and his disadvantage. There was his public identification with his brother, John F. Kennedy, in the golden years of the new frontier. He was associated with the glamour of the early 60s when the White House had youth, style, and a French chef, and government looked like fun. He seemed capable of endowing his followers, many of whom embarrassed him by running ahead, with a zest for the notion that a single person can make this a better world.
We can't find answers to them completely, but at least we'll face them and at least we'll make progress with them.
His appeal was most obvious for the country's youth, particularly its college students. He told them they were important, that they must participate even though their elders in government, industry, and education did not trust them. He trusted them.
You have a much greater stake than any of the rest of us, because you've got the least ties to the past and really to the present and the greatest stake in the future, much more than any of those that are presently within government. So what we do and the decisions that we make obviously have greatest effect on all of you. To make your voices heard and to work for policies and programs that you're interested in, not just to leave this school and turn your back on all of these matters, I think is essential. As I say, I don't have any easy way in which it's all going to be accomplished, but I would tell you that it can make a difference.
Robert Kennedy joked about lowering the voting age to 12. I lose them after 25, he said. But Kennedy's identification with the young was also a personal one because he was young. He looked young, and he acted as if he always would be young. Many of those who worshiped John Kennedy came to worship Robert. Robert was a strange hero. Most American heroes have given up something important to attain their goal: money, pleasure, pride, or power. He seemed to have renounced none of these. Robert and Ethel Kennedy's family of 10 were based most of the year at the 10-acre Hickory Hill estate. It is what Ethel calls Bobby's backyard. He was a selfless father who took a lively and sympathetic interest in each child, whether it was the baby's first attempt at swimming or the eldest son's choice of a school. Kathleen, Joe, Bobby, David, Courtney, Michael, Carrie, Christopher, Matthew, Douglas. And neither was he too busy to know their friends, Brumus, Panda, and Freckles, and Battlestar, the dogs, and the horses, and the iguanas, and the rabbits, and the turtles, and the geese. There will be another child he will never know. Kennedy's wealth, estimated at $10 million, his energy and his eternal youth provided him with great mobility. It was hard to tell where he would turn up next. They had, for example, one gay time on the upper reaches of New York's Hudson River. With 7 of their 10 children and a station wagon full of nieces and nephews, including Carolyn Kennedy, the senator and his wife led an expedition of rubber rafts, canoes, and kayaks into midstream and had a ball. And when they skied at Sun Valley, the hills were covered with happy Kennedys. Bobby would take any hill. His form was described by a ski instructor as not very graceful, but damned aggressive. It must have seemed to many that Kennedy's life was a merry-go-round of glamorous people, births, balls, and a life where no moment was left unfilled. But these were the events that filled the cracks in his life. For the most part, his life was made of work, only less hard perhaps because he loved work as he loved play. It is some small consolation to know that he lived more life in 42 years than most would live in 80. The Kennedy critics saw much of this as money too obviously enjoyed, millions expended for fun, political power, and public image. But Robert Kennedy's life was not a series of theatrical happenings. He had staked out new ground on basic public policies, and in recent months he had spoken out often on the three most inflammatory issues in American life: Vietnam, civil rights, poverty. Each time he took what was, at the time he took it, a minority position.
Say the Negro has made great progress, which is true, and that he should be satisfied and be patient, which is neither true nor realistic. And if any man claims the Negro should be content or satisfied, let him say he would willingly change the color of his skin and go to live in the Negro section of any of our major cities. I happen to have some differences of some importance with the administration in connection with Vietnam. But I don't think that the answer or solution to Vietnam is to question the patriotism of those that we disagree with.
And I don't think that we've been putting enough of our resources into the fight against poverty over the period of the last few years. Now, undoubtedly, the reason is because of the cost of the war in Vietnam. But we spent last year in the war against poverty, and the OEO, we spent about the equivalent of about 2.5 weeks of the war in Vietnam, and I think we can do better than that.
The word ruthless was probably first applied to the senator 10 years ago when he was the combative chief counsel for the Senate Rackets Committee. His style seemed tough to tough old line Democrats. It seemed too self-confident, too sophisticated. The word ruthless became affixed to him in the early 60s when, as Attorney General, he pursued the demons of segregation, racketeering, and price rigging in a manner many thought too zealous. In listening to people talk about Robert Kennedy, it was sometimes hard to believe they were talking about the same man.
He's much too abrasive. He's much too rude. He's terribly concerned about the people around him. He's terribly concerned about people in general.
He's been built up with this almost idolatry around him, and I guess he just feels that everybody should defer to what he wants and to accept his judgment on all problems.
I think it stems mostly from the fact that he's had the courage of his convictions and the courage to do what he thinks was right and to take it head on, and so people that don't like what he's done have said, well, he's ruthless.
I would describe Bob as dedicated and loyal. I would qualify that by saying that Bob believes so strongly in the ends he is pursuing that he is not over-scrupulous about the means that he employs.
Oh, he's a strong individual in the sense of character and determination. But I don't think he's ruthless, if that's what you mean. He's determined and persistent.
Ethel Kennedy was asked if it ever hurt.
Well, I suppose on some rare occasions, when somebody says something about him that's not very pleasant to hear.
He talked to CBS News correspondent Roger Mudd.
I do, aren't I being nice to you?
Very nice, but
see?
But most people still have the view that
Most.
well, I suppose that's unfair. But
yes.
In the public prints, people are not surprised by. They think there is always an ulterior motive in what you do. Is that?
Is that what?
Is that accurate?
No.
No.
What did you think I was going to say?
Is this something now that's gotten started and you can't do anything to stop it? The public image that you have?
I don't know.
All right, how did it get started?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
The McCarthy thing and the Hoffa thing and the 60 campaign?
I suppose I've been in positions in which... But I don't know exactly. I don't know.
But Robert Kennedy had many constant reminders of his great popularity, his importance, and the significance of his life. He received an average of 50 speaking invitations a day, 6 days a week. It was not unusual for him to receive 2,500 letters in a single day. Robert Kennedy used every minute of his day. He walked from his office to the Capitol in all weather, not for exercise or recreation. It was 5 minutes away from 2,500 letters a day for a briefing by a knowledgeable aide. Hearings occupied much of Robert Kennedy's time, but they did not satisfy his full range of interest or curiosity about the subject.
Do you know anything about the poverty program?
No.
You ever heard of Head Start?
No.
Nice to see you.
Kennedy worked hard for his new state, New York, and he earned the grudging respects of many of his colleagues who had opposed him in 1964. In his first year in the Senate, he compiled a remarkable record for a senior senator, and he was only a freshman. No matter what he accomplished, it was too little to satisfy his soaring ambitions to do and to move and to make things go. He was asked whether the Senate was a satisfying place to be.
I think it's at times frustrating, the fact that you can't get more done, and you find there are matters that really require immediate attention, emergency matters, and that you feel strongly that the country or an area of the country would be better off, or a group of people, a part of our society would have better lives if we took a particular course of action. And to see it go on day after day, and that's frustrating. If you're in the executive branch of the government, or a governor, I expect, or the executive branch of the government here in Washington, it's much more possible to take an action and see some results from it immediately. That's not possible in the United States Senate, so I think that that part of it is frustrating.
What's your opinion of the quality of the United States Senate? Do you think generally the quality...
Very high. You know, there are some that perhaps that my respect for is less, but as a body and as a group of individuals, I think very, very highly of them. If you compare them to any other group of individuals, profession across the United States, I think they match or are superior to any other group in the country.
Just watching the Senate in action, it's occurred to me that senators have one characteristic in common, and that's vanity. Is that an accurate observation?
Well, somebody once said about the fact, you know, in the Senate, the presiding officer is called the president. When somebody says, Mr. President, 100 pairs of eyes look up. I don't know. I suppose that everybody in politics, and you're up in front of crowds, and then you, to some extent, you begin to think that what you say is important and significant. And because people clap at the beginning, when you stand up, people clap at the beginning, they clap at the end.
Do you think about running for president?
Well, I don't mean, I'm not being morbid about it.
Yeah.
I was making any plans to run, or making a decision that I will run, or knowing that at some future time in the history of the United States I'm going to run for president. I don't. I mean, quite frankly, I don't. Just because I don't think that you can plan for the future at all.
On March 16th, Senator Kennedy had made up his mind to make the race for president.
I run for the presidency because I want the Democratic Party and the United States of America to stand for hope instead of despair, for reconciliation of men instead of the growing risk of world war. I run because it is now unmistakably clear that we can change these disastrous, divisive policies only by changing the men who are now making them. I cannot stand aside from the contest that will decide our nation's future and our children's future. The remarkable New Hampshire campaign of Senator Eugene McCarthy has proven how deep are the present divisions within our party and within our country. Until that was publicly clear, my presence in the race would have been seen as a clash of personalities rather than issues. But now that that fight is won, and over policies which I have long been challenging, I must enter that race. The fight is just beginning, and I believe that I can win. I do not lightly dismiss the dangers and the difficulties of challenging an incumbent president. But these are not ordinary times, and this is not an ordinary election. At stake is not simply the leadership of our party and even our country. It is our right to the moral leadership of this planet.
It was just 4 days after Senator McCarthy's stunning performance in New Hampshire that Senator Kennedy set out to capture the Democratic nomination. He was criticized by those who said he should have gone into New Hampshire himself, and by those who said he should not have stolen the spotlight so abruptly from McCarthy. But Kennedy said the crucial issues of war and poverty dividing the country made it essential for him to run, and he said the people would understand his message. Although Kennedy was privately a rather shy and reserved man, he relished the almost bruising contact with the crowds that swelled and roared around him as they had for his brother. Occasionally, in all the public affection, he lost a tie clip, a handkerchief, even a shoe, anything his admirers could get their hands on. But he smiled through it all, and some said he needed physical proof of his popularity, tangible evidence that he was the candidate of the people. This was a campaign in which he seemed more relaxed and good-humored than ever before, a time in which he could laugh at himself and the persistent charges of his critics that he was too ambitious. He had to be, he said, as the seventh of 9 children, just to be able to survive. And he developed a bantering style with his audiences.
So will you give me your vote? And will you give me your hand? And are we going to win on Tuesday? And we'll win the Chicago Convention in August? And we'll win the election in November? And we'll make a difference for our citizens here in the United States of America. If I had a hair like that, I could get elected any place.
Throughout the campaign, he emphasized his concern for the poor and forgotten in a rich country. He said the ghettos must be transformed into places where human beings could live decently, that the rich must be taxed more heavily to help pay for a better society, that the great divisions of class and color must be bridged over. He portrayed himself as the candidate of peace and reconciliation, and of a youthful, questing spirit, the spirit of a new style politics. His wife, Ethel, was frequently with him, contributing to the image of youth and high spirits. Those close to Kennedy said it particularly disturbed him that McCarthy had won the allegiance of so many of the young. But Kennedy, too, was the favorite of many young people to whom he directed his primary messages of peace in Vietnam and the rest of the world, and justice at home. This was a campaign of early triumphs for Kennedy in Indiana and Nebraska, and then defeat in the Oregon primary, the first time a Kennedy had lost an election. But then the tide turned for him in South Dakota and California. He talked confidently about Chicago and the convention.